The presenting sponsor of Moon Tower Soccer is FVF Law.
To find out what makes FVF a different kind of injury law firm, you can visit fvf.law.
Hello, friends, and thanks for listening to Moon Tower Soccer. This week, we'll discuss what went wrong in LA. We'll also talk to our good friend Adrian Healey to preview this weekend's match against the Vancouver Whitecaps. And then we're going to be joined by Extra Time's David Goss to recap the GA Cup and talk about the Austin FC Academy, where the U15s brought home silverware. My name is Landon Cottam, and I'm joined, as always, by Mr. Jeremiah Bentley.
Hey, everybody. I'm Jeremiah Bentley. Landon, I have a question for you.
What's up?
What did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, my God. I think early on, it was probably like kind of the typical stuff like a fireman or an astronaut or something. And then as I got older, because I lived in West Texas, I didn't know what jobs existed. And so it was like pretty basic stuff. But yeah, maybe astronaut. I don't know.
You would be the first astronaut in West Texas, I would have to imagine, right?
There was a guy from Lubbock, I think, that was an astronaut.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's good. No, I wanted to be a sports writer or broadcaster. And then when I was like a junior in high school, my guidance counselor showed me how much sports broadcasters made. And I decided that I would do something else in my life. But I feel like this little podcasting gig that we've done over the last couple of years has like allowed 16-year-old Jeremiah to realize his dream, which I think is pretty cool.
That's right. We're getting paid to be sports commentators.
Yeah, who knew that would come for us?
If you would like to help support young Jeremiah's dreams, you can join our Patreon. We've already had quite a few people join since we kind of launched this year's stuff last week. We're very, very grateful to you all. Just to go through again, a $2 level is just kind of like the tip jar option, but you'll still get access to Patreon only posts. $5 level, you'll get access to those posts plus a Moon Tower Soccer patch made by local Austin artist Odd Colored Sheep. And then at $10, you get the patch, Patreon access, plus our Moon Tower Soccer scarf. Jeremiah, do you want to describe the scarf for folks?
Describe the scarf. Well, it's green and black.
It's kind of a classic look. It's not, I know it's like Los Verdes and some other folks have done some kind of like wild ones. We decided to do like kind of a more traditional, like classic looking soccer scarf.
It's exactly the soccer scarf that you would imagine from the two of us, I think, if you think about what you might get. Yeah, it's got the Moon Towers on it. It's got Hello Friends on one side. I assume Moon Tower Soccer on the other. I don't remember now.
Moon Tower Soccer on the other side. And then we snuck in another little message on some of the borders that says, "Thanks for nothing, see you never."
Yeah, so it's a cool looking scarf. Who's seen it? Who saw the outline? Mike Cagnola, completely unbiased source, I think, said he thought it was going to look amazing.
All right. Well, you can see a kind of a mock-up picture of it. We're hoping to get those in hand here pretty soon, and we can post some real photos of it. But I got to see a picture from the production line. They paused production to send us a picture of a real one. And it looks great. I'm really, really happy with it. So you can find that. You can also join as a Swoon Tower subscriber, where you get all the Patreon access. You'll get a Moon Tower patch and a Swoon Tower patch, which we'll also have photos of those sometime in the near future to put up. But I know we've had some people mention wanting to get the Swoon Tower patch, but also maybe join at the $10 level. If you're one of those people, reach out to us and we'll figure out a way for you to get all of those things and support Swoon Tower as well. But if you don't even like us and just like Swoon Tower, that's a perfect level to join at. Or if you do like both of us and want both of those patches, it's a good level to join at. But yeah, thanks to all of the folks who have signed up so far. Thanks for everyone who has supported us for the last year on our Patreon. We truly, truly appreciate it. It makes weeks like this where we have to talk about games we don't want to talk about a lot easier. And it really helps to have your support behind us when we're doing all this.
Yeah, thanks very much for everybody that's supported us in the past, and will continue to do it.
All right, let's jump into some Austin FC news before our interviews. The interviews were great and took up some time because they deserved some time, frankly. So we're gonna have to move through this part quickly.
And it allows us to spend less time on LAFC, which is really the other selfish thing that we wanted out of this, right?
Yeah, That part's a happy accident. So first part, Alex Radovanovic is apparently in Austin now. There's not been any announcements, but just based on following Instagram activity from him and his wife, it looks like they're here. I would imagine today being Monday, I would imagine he's at the training center today. So maybe we'll get some type of formal announcement, maybe some footage of him in Austin gear, but he's here. So the countdown has started to when he can actually start playing.
Do you have a guess about when that might be? I mean, I can't imagine it's this weekend.
No, I mean, yeah, I would be surprised if he's even on the bench this weekend, but maybe the following weekend he would be ready to be on the bench. I think that's the earliest, but you would guess like within 3 weeks, like he'll be on the bench at least, right?
Yeah, you would think so. And obviously it's a position of need. If he's just a warm body who can fill in
Right.
confidently at all at center back, we'll be in better shape than Austin is in right now.
Yeah. Speaking of center back depth, we mentioned a report out of Costa Rica that Julio Cascante may be signing an extension. Well, we had a listener reach out this week and say they did a tour of the stadium and that there was a graphic up on one of the screens there that said Julio Cascante 2026. And so either he's running for president, or I guess maybe he's running for like Senate or something in a midterm election, or that contract extension is really happening and we're just waiting for the announcement now.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting. And that fits completely with the rumor, because I believe the rumor was through 2025 with the club option on the next year. So
yeah,
makes it seem like Julio 2026. And he would be a better option for president or senator or basically anything than many of the choices we have right now.
Yeah. Then let's talk about the GA Cup for a bit. So GA Cup is big soccer tournament where all the MLS clubs and a lot of international clubs as well send their academy teams in and compete. The Austin FC U17s didn't quite make it out of the group, but then went on and won all 3 of their showcase games, which is kind of like extra games that they got to play afterwards. The U15s went on and won the whole damn thing. They beat the Philadelphia Union in the final on penalties and brought home the trophy, which is really, really cool. We're going to have David Goss from Extra Time. He was also the play-by-play commentator for most of these games, including Austin FC U15's playoff run. I think he did all of those games. And so he's going to come on, talk about GA Cup in general, Austin FC's academy setup and kind of what he sees and where they fit into this academy landscape. And also just kind of about youth soccer and how far it's come, where it's going, and kind of share some other context. I know like we get to talk about Austin's academy a fair amount, but just because we're not covering youth soccer on a global scale or on a national scale, we don't have the context. And so having David on to kind of share some of that with us was really, really cool. So looking forward to that. Jeremiah, do you want to...
One more thing on the U15s that was really cool was watching the fans meet them at the airport yesterday when they came back. Was awesome. It was like a fairly good sized turnout, and of course the Austin FC social media team was there to think I've recorded it and make a video out of it. So that was really just like the excitement is real. Like sometimes I think that we're too much into it and maybe nobody really cares about like a U15 tournament, but I know Los Verdes Slack was super busy like while those games were going on, and then to see that crowd meet them at the airport, I think shows that there's a lot of excitement for this club in Austin at every level.
We also get into this next piece of news with Goss a little bit, but Paul Tenorio reported about some academy tampering. How should we cover this right now, knowing that we're going to talk about it with David a little bit later?
I think we could just say that I think there's a meeting of, I think it was the sporting officers that was announced that there was academy tampering, and Austin and Philadelphia were singled out as 2 of the clubs that were, I guess, the worst offenders or had the most. I don't even know how to describe it exactly.
Biggest offenders is the way that Tenorio reported it.
And I think you posted the video report on Twitter last week, maybe, of him. So, we just got into it a little more with Goss to kind of help understand like exactly how big of a deal it is, how much of a penalty it really is. And I think it was a pretty enlightening conversation. Yeah.
We also have some Austin FC 2 games coming up. So we have a midweek game this Wednesday versus North Texas SC. That is FC Dallas's next pro team. And then on Sunday against St. Louis City at 6 p.m. So a busy week for the second team. They beat the Tacoma Defiance on Was it Saturday, Sunday, this last weekend?
It was Friday.
Yeah, so they remain undefeated. One of them was a draw, but they've not lost yet, which is a big deal. And I think especially a team like Tacoma, that's traditionally a good team who actually produces pros out of that squad. So it's looking good for the second team so far. Are you going to be able to go to any of the games this week?
That's it's looking really good for a second team that's like just figuring themselves out, right? Like they have no experience playing together. I am not, because I will still be out of town on Wednesday, and then going to obviously the home game on Saturday. So I'll probably actually spend a little bit of time with the family. Apparently they like to see me, so I'll do some of that. Are you going to go?
Yeah, I'll go to at least one of them. I think we may be on Sunday. We may be helping out with some laundry project stuff, and I'm not sure what time that's happening yet, so we may not be able to do the Sunday one. But I'll probably try to go on Wednesday. Any other Austin FC news, Jeremiah?
No, I think that we have no choice but to talk about this LAFC match.
All right. Well, let's get into it. So Austin FC lost 3-0 on the road to LAFC. We were kind of hoping last week on the show that LA would go to Vancouver and maybe have a super tough game, get beat up a little bit, spend all their energy on that one, and then come into this game against us tired and beaten and maybe a little unmotivated. Well, that didn't really happen. They beat Vancouver 3-0 and were able to sub off players early. And not to mention that it doesn't really matter if they sub off players or not, because their second string is just as good as their first string pretty much at every position. They came in with some guys rested, but again, like Carlos Vela didn't start, but when you have Bouanga, Buke, and Apoku as your front three, like it doesn't matter. It's still a really good team to play against.
Yeah, we talked about the depth last week with Twellman, and I mean, I guess I knew it, but at 61, they sub in Ilya Sanchez, Carlos Vela, and Ryan Hollingshead. I mean, if nothing else talks about the depth of that club, the fact that those are your people coming off the bench 60 minutes into a match that you're already leading 2-0, like really demonstrates how strong the roster is from top to bottom. So I don't think that the result, I think there was any shame in losing away to LAFC, and especially with the way Dennis Bouanga played. Like he was a one-man wrecking crew in every sense of the word. But I think there were parts of the performance that we'll get into that were pretty disappointing.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. It's like the result is maybe to be expected, but it comes at a time when morale is already pretty low. And then what we saw on the field for the majority of the game, not all of it, didn't really give us anything to get excited about again either.
Yeah, it was another. Do you want to go through the goals quickly?
Yeah, let's talk about the goals, because I think like looking at a 3-0 scoreline, you might think that like that's the thing we're most disappointed in. And so first goal, let's see if I can remember which one was which. The first one comes from Buke was on the left side of the box, tries to put in a cross, and it kind of like gets deflected, falls straight to Bouanga at the top of the box. And Wolff and Pereira are both trying to close down on him, but he gets the shot away so quickly that neither of them are able to get there in time. Catches Stuver kind of off guard because it's through traffic and the shot gets off so quickly, and he sneaks it right inside to the near post. So really, really well taken there. I think you could maybe say like Wolff and Pereira should have maybe closed him down a little bit better, but that's a tough one. I think it's hard to, it's like 10% better by three different people maybe could have stopped the goal, but I don't think there's any one person that you say like that's on them right there. The second goal was, this one was from a corner that gets looped in. It falls to Bouanga on the backside. He takes it out of the air. At first glance, I thought this is one of the best strikes I've ever seen, the way he takes it out of the air. Upon review, it is still a very good strike, and to be able to hit it that hard and that accurately from that kind of angle is still really hard, but it does take a slight deflection off of Owen Wolff, and I think that's why Stuver doesn't even move, because it takes that little deflection. I think maybe he could have gotten a hand on it from the initial strike. It was hit very hard from not very far away, so who knows what would have happened after that, but I think it made Stuver look worse than than what the shot actually was.
Does that officially count as a volley? Wasn't that a volley? That goal?
Yeah, I don't think it went off the ground at all.
Yeah, I don't
I
think it
think he
did.
takes it straight out of the air. Either way, it was an impressive and like a little bit of bad luck again. The third one was in the 68th minute. This one comes from like kind of a counterattack. It ends up, was it Palencia that or Vela that plays that final ball?
The ball was Palencia.
Palencia ends up with it like at
ball,
the kind of the corner of the box on the right side. Bouanga is streaking down the left side, hand up in the air. Nick Lima is in it right back at that point. He pulls in to kind of track maybe Tillman or somebody who is running down the middle of the field. And it's one of those things where Lima probably should have known that Bouanga was there and maybe stepped over as he saw the ball coming in. But the way that ball was put in, and then just like the angle that he finishes this ball at is, there's like, not, like you just have to applaud. Like, what do you do about that? Like, these are mistakes that an Austin FC on all of these goals, I think, mistakes that Austin not only makes this year, but makes through most of the season last year. And just the players that the ball falls to on the other end aren't good enough to punish them for it. And I think that's true on all of these. And on all of these, the ball that the player that the ball fell to happened to be Denis Bouanga. Not happened to. I think there's some skill involved in that, but he's the one it fell to. He scores 3 times. I think the XG from all 3 of those shots combined was like less than 0.25.
Right. I think it was around that. I mean, that third one, I had to watch that like a dozen times to figure out the angle of how it even ended up in the net. Like, it was crazy where he shot from.
Yeah, he roofs it from a really acute angle with both Lima and Stuver there in his way. It was amazing.
Yeah, so I would like to see less of that guy in the future playing against Austin. I think that was one lesson from it. Let's maybe get into a little bit about how Austin played. I mean, I think somebody tweeted like my question for Moon Tower Soccer is what's wrong? And I think there's probably things look a little bit different early in the game than later on. So maybe let's start with like what Austin looked like for the first, I mean, almost up until the goal, first 30, 35 minutes. They were pretty productive. There's a banger from John Kolmanich that goes off the top crossbar right that obviously we know goals change games. If that gone in with something different. But then, then things changed.
Yeah. So early on and really throughout, it got less and less as the game went on, but Austin was doing really well at breaking LA's press and playing strategically, but bravely to make some delicate little passes past their front line into Danny Pereira for him to kind of spring the attack forward. And we did create a few chances. I think that Kolmanich shot was off of a corner actually, but there were a few opportunities that were created going forward. Some moments where Austin got in the final third, was able to generate a shot, but so often we do so well to play it out of the back, break their press, get into the attacking third, and then everything would just fall apart. And the movement was bad, the positioning was bad, the execution was bad, and it was just so frustrating to watch us do so well moving up the field and then for it all just to die over and over and over. And I think part of what's broken, I don't think this has everything to do with it, but one thing that I've noticed is last year with John Gallagher playing as that left fullback, we were sending both fullbacks forward, not fully overlapping, but they would be up and kind of pinched in a little bit, but they were always up there close enough to kind of create that triangle on the side. Whenever you're playing possession soccer, you always want to be creating triangles. If you see 2 guys close enough to combine with one another, you want to put yourself in a position to be the third point of that triangle. And so with John Gallagher pushed up on that left sideline, you had Diego Fagundes ahead of him, and then usually Driussi for lots of the season inside as that inside point of the triangle. And those 3 could play off of each other and create space either in behind or inside for one of them to do something and make something happen. This season, I think in this new setup, like this new 3-2-2-3 attacking shape, I think it's helped us in breaking the press. I think we've really not struggled breaking anybody's press this year on a consistent basis throughout a game. We've been able to get the ball through midfield, but then where it's breaking down is what happens after that. If we Danny Pereira breaks through the press, springs the ball forward to Driussi, that third point in the triangle is not there anymore because Kolmanich is one of the ones building up out of the back. Pereira and Wolff are some of the ones building out of the back. And so when you spring it forward, they're then tasked with legging it all the way up the field to get into position. Oftentimes that's too late. The other place that could come from is from your center forward. I don't know if Maxi Ruti was told to stay backside, but so often there would be some play developing on one side of the pitch and Maxi would just be jogging down the middle of the field instead of running over and trying to provide an option, or just kind of like jogging down the middle of the field, like on the back line, but not really running in behind, not running towards the ball. And so I don't know if this is something he's being told to do or if he doesn't know what he's supposed to do, but he was not helpful in a lot of the game. And so I think there's just like a few things like that. And then on top of that, I think just like some confidence. There's moments where we play it up the side and we'd break the press, play it up the side, and then we'd just like, okay, good job, guys, we did it. And then play it back to the back line and then do it all over again without ever creating any dangerous moment. And so I think there's a lot of things kind of happening here that are compounding on one another and making it just feel really bad at times.
Yeah, I mean, just from the numbers perspective. So Austin follows up. I think the 8 shots last week was the least I can remember, maybe ever, or the least I can remember certainly in a long time. With 9 this week, so like just the attempts are coming from out of nowhere. And of Austin's 9 attempts, 8 of these are from outside the box. So we're not even creating. They're creating very few shots, and even fewer of those are high percentage shots.
Yeah. So looking at like what going forward, how do we fix this? And I think I've seen arguments online that it's this player, it's the striker, it's this player. If we play this player, things will get fixed. I've also seen arguments that it's all Josh Wolff. It's all Josh Wolff's fault. We need to get rid of this guy. And I think the answer is like a combination of all of these things. Like the players don't seem to have confidence. They're not executing against like what they need to do in certain moments to be able to sustain attacks. But it's also Wolff's responsibility to put them in positions to succeed. And so I don't think that like there's been people who don't like Zardes who think, okay, Ruti needs to play. That's going to fix some problems. It clearly didn't, but Zardes hasn't been good either. And so it needs to be both. Wolff needs to figure it out and make some tweaks, put some pieces into place that make the players more confident in what they're doing, feel more confident in trying things, that they feel that they have support. The players are around them to try things and actually make something happen in that attacking third. But when they're in those positions, they also need to execute and actually do something. Neither of these things are happening right now.
Yeah, and one of the things I think, which he's done a bit of that I would like to see harkening back to 2022 is like picking an 11 and sticking with it, because Austin's trying new things. Like I don't think shifting the starting 11 around a lot is helpful in terms of like the club being able to pick up these tactical changes and like execute on. Like I think they need as much time on the pitch as possible together. So I mean, I kind of keep riding with whoever you think your best 11 are, and hope that everybody gets it together.
Yeah, looking at the schedule here, this is a pretty good time to do exactly that. Let's start from basics. Let's play our best 11 guys. Who does Josh Wolff think his best 11 players are? Let's work on some tactics that we think can work with those 11 guys. Because we have, I think, maybe 3 or 4 consecutive weeks where we're just playing on the weekends before the US Open Cup starts up for us. And so this is a good moment to try that. So I really like that idea. Anything else we want to talk about from this game?
No, let's go ahead and move on to the interviews.
Okay, cool. So like we said before, we're going to have David Goss on, talk about the GA Cup and the Austin FC U15 victory. And then we're going to have, after that, our friend Adrian Healey on to preview the upcoming Vancouver Whitecaps game. Hang tight. We'll be right back with more Moon Tower Soccer. Moon Tower Soccer is brought to you by our friends at FVF Law, the official injury lawyers of Austin FC.
FVF is a different kind of personal injury law firm dedicated to community, transparency, and client education.
You can go to fvf.law to find out what makes FVF a different kind of injury law firm and why understanding your legal options can dramatically change the outcome of a case. Once again, that's fvf.law. Amplify Credit Union, formed in 1967 by 10 Austin-based IBM employees, is a member-owned financial cooperative that served the needs of Central Texans for over 5 decades. Amplify's team lives and works in the communities they serve, making them the experts on how members can achieve their personal and professional financial goals.
So Landon, do you have to be Austin-based or an IBM employee to be an Amplify Credit Union member?
You do not.
You do not. You can actually be anyone that's a resident of the state of Texas. So that's, 95% of you out there listening are eligible for it. And what makes Amplify different? There are no bank fees. Amplify is the first financial institution in Texas to put an end to bank fees. In 2022, Americans paid almost $8 billion in overdraft fees alone. Millennials pay an average of $336 a year in bank fees, which works out to 6 Austin FC game tickets per person per year. It would also be about, 14 electric jellyfish? But you will pay none of those bank fees with Amplify Credit Union.
Learn to trust your bank again at Amplify Credit Union. To learn more, go to goamplify.com/moontower. All right, we are thrilled to be joined by David Goss. You may know him from the Extra Time podcast. He's also very knowledgeable about U.S. youth soccer and was doing play-by-play for the GA Cup, where the Austin FC Academy did quite well. So, David, thanks so much for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me. This is my favorite time of the year. This is my favorite week of the year. So when you messaged me, it just extends my GA Cup experience a little more. So I was happy to talk about it.
Well, we're thinking about making this just Austin FC Academy podcast based on how the first team results have been going.
Yeah, right. So. That's the safer space.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you mentioned this is your favorite time of the year. It was in a different place this year. It's like it was in Florida and not in Frisco. How was that change?
Frisco maybe isn't the most fun place in the world, so I didn't miss that. And historically, the big conversation in Frisco is, I'm sure you guys know this better than I do, but it's really windy because it's like open space. I don't know. Someone explained one time it comes down from Oklahoma, the open plain and blah, blah, blah. But it's like so windy that game plans throughout the week are, how do we affect the game with the wind? And again, that's how big of a factor it is. So I think that was the biggest change. And then I got to go to the beach for half an hour after every day of games. So that was positive for me as well. But I think the facilities at FC Dallas are pretty impressive. And it's funny because, we'll talk about some of the best academies in the world and what they do. Well, the facilities we have are better than everything on the planet. And so when a Palmeiras and a Genk and a Valencia come to Toyota Stadium and the setup there, they're blown away. Where for us, it's it's a Sunday, we're going to take our kids to a soccer tournament and there's going to be 97 fields and they're all going to be flat and, top-notch goals. We think it's normal, but they don't. But IMG is obviously impressive as well. And it was pretty fun. Spring break in Sarasota, Florida. I think that's the dream for anyone.
Well, we're glad that you got to come to Austin last year and experience a different part of Texas that's not Frisco.
Very different. Less strip malls.
Yeah. All right, jumping into the tournament. The Austin FC U15s won the whole thing. They beat the Philadelphia Union in penalties. Their other wins were against the Revs, the Crew, San Jose, Red Bulls, and then Club America and Genk. And you guys said on the broadcast, Genk is if you look at the Belgian national team for the last 10 years, half of these guys went through this academy. And so beating a team like that is a big deal. On top of that, Vigo Ortiz was named MVP of the tournament for the U15 age group. I've watched a lot of this U17 group for Austin and a couple of the guys who have aged out now, but I've not really seen much of this group. You've probably seen more of them than I have at this point. What stood out to you about this U15 group from Austin?
So I think when you talk about players at this age, you're talking for the most part about players who still have more individual flair and creativity and are a little less coached down. The 17s, you get closer to more professionalized, but the international teams come in at the U15 level already at that. And so when you talk about a Genk, you talk about a team that never beats themselves, never overexposes themselves, never opens up too much, sort of manages a lot of games and then finds a moment where you'll beat yourself. And Austin beat them because Austin was capable of doing that too. And that's rare at this level. So a back line that never overexposes, fullbacks that for this Austin team, and Nate Atkinson and Cole Coughlin, for the most part, they pushed up and were creative, but managed it well where they rotated three, or Landry Moncrief, the defensive midfielder, would drop in. A lot of things you see with the first team, it was similar in this group. And so their ability to play professionally, I think, and have professional performances is rare at the U15 level. And then obviously their ability to control possession and beat teams in possession. And so I think Vigo Ortiz was the bright spot 1v1, beating guys, sort of relieving pressure in games where the ball was against them in those moments. And Cala Jimenez, who scored a couple of goals, was the other big piece that was capable of doing that. But for the most part, it was like dominating the ball, moving it around, and then playing out through Gavin Wolff, who is Owen Wolff's brother and Josh Wolff's youngest son. And they told me they think he might be the best of the Wolves, even though he's a defender. That's, I think, the way they termed it.
Were you surprised by how big he is?
Sort of, but he looks like a wolf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They all look so similar. And I think he's been playing mainly with the 17. So for him, this is a cool thing that happens at GA Cup, which is this is sort of a testing point for academies once a year. And so for the most part, you will see players play with their ages. So, better players, to push them, you move them up in age group to challenge them. And now with MLS Next Pro, some push them into professional ranks. And those players will be brought down a lot of times in GA Cup. And the responsibility there is to be a leader, right? Because when you are a young player in a group where everyone's older than you, you're just trying to hold on. And eventually the hope is you'll be a pro who will be a leader and, one day be a captain of a club, whatever it is. That opportunity comes when you come back down to your age group. So that was sort of what Gavin Wolff was tasked with. And he was awesome the entire tournament.
Go ahead.
Oh, I wanted to follow up on this tweet that you sent yesterday, sort of about what this means. You said, more importantly, identity from the first team down through the academy coaches and players is built strong. Can you expand on that a little bit?
With academies and, with everything, I think for a lot of people, if you have no concept of what we're talking about, think college sports, where you have sort of classes. So some schools are always good, and some schools have a special class that challenges for 2 years, and then they wait 6 years to come back. So in the academy setup, you have a lot of clubs where they have a good team. The things that Austin were successful with and the things that Austin have built are repeatable. They are a cohesive identity, like I just talked about, a team that played very similar to the first team, a team that understands the identification of the players they want, because that's one of the advantages that a Red Bulls and Philly have always had, which is they have a unique style. So they are not always recruiting the same player as Chicago and LAFC and whoever else, because they're fitting guys into their profile, which is high pressing, high intensity, continued run, stuff like that. Austin's is the opposite. But Austin has that identity, so they can go out and recruit players that maybe aren't exactly who everyone else is looking at, which gives you a little bit of an advantage. All of those things are repeatable, and all of those things help players move through the pathway, and that's what I saw at this tournament. And so when I think of the best clubs that I've seen in Major League Soccer, that's the formula. And that's what really excited me about Austin. Alejandro Oliveros was the coach of this team. Every conversation, Josh Wolff came up, Greg Berhalter came up, the style came up, and the concepts all the way through. And so to have a U15 coach who understands it and is embodying it, and the players are understanding it, that is what's going to give you a pathway so that players can step through. And the idea behind that is, Red Bull's worded this best to me one time, of like, when you move up from the 15 to the 17 to the second team to the first team, it's the same lingo. The positional responsibilities are the same. So the players are faster. The competition's harder. But you technically know what you're required, right? Cole Coughlin was the captain of this team, the right back. If he were to play tomorrow in MLS Next Pro, he'd be overwhelmed by the speed, the physicality, and maybe some of the technique. But he would know what his role at right back is under a coach he's never played for, with players he's never played with, because it is cohesive.
Yeah, that brings up a point that I've thought about some with this Austin FC Academy, is the types of players that they're recruiting. I see some of the kids on the U17 team who are some of the better players, but have maybe not gotten national team call-ups like some of their teammates have. And I think some of that maybe has to do with like style of play. Like, it's not what the national team's looking for. Maybe they're not there size-wise yet. But I guess like the difference, tell me if this is right, but the difference in this and college football, like you mentioned, like this isn't Nebraska recruiting option quarterbacks who are never going to go pro. Like, these kids could still do it, just in a different way, maybe, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And you might reach a level where, let's just put out a name right now, Jack McGlynn might not be on the national team as much as he should, because maybe he doesn't fit the style, right? Maybe he's not the player they're looking for, but that doesn't mean he won't go for $25 million to the club in Europe who does play that style. So you're 100% right. I would also say, I think national team stuff is really nice. It's a great experience for the players. It's still a way to increase your value in the transfer market. And that's why MLS teams are happy to let players leave during a season for a U20 World Cup, a U17 World Cup. It's a way for players to get identified, which is great for them. I think the value of youth national teams has decreased as the quality of professional academies has increased. It's like we're in Bradenton, which used to be the only professional academy in America. It was the U.S. residency program. The facilities, the training, the schooling at 27 of the MLS clubs is now equal to what that was. And so I do think, as much as we talk about the youth national teams, because it's just a barometer for some things, they can only see so many players. Players get better, players get worse. It goes up and down. And I worry that we overvalue it sometimes with the way our setup is now.
Yeah, yes. Oh no! See, we're gonna step over each other. Okay, Landon, go ahead. What do you want to ask?
No, go for it. You're up.
All right. We talked about this international competition. And I think you even mentioned on the broadcast, like, this was just not that way in the past, right? I think at some point in the last several years, MLS started bringing international clubs into
it started in 2013. Was the
in 2013?
Yeah.
It's like, so now 10 years in, how do MLS teams stack up overall?
It's gotten better. The first 5-6 years, and my first few years going down, maybe we'd get an MLS team in a semifinal, maybe, and maybe it would be FC Dallas, maybe it would be Red Bulls. And then from 2019 on, it has shifted. And MLS teams have the ability to contend at a higher level. Seattle won the U17 level twice. Portland won the U15 level last year. And now Austin wins the U15 level this year. Philadelphia winning the 17s. That is very new. So for the first 6 years with international teams, only international teams won. And they added more as it went along. So the first year was like Stoke City and one other team, and Stoke won it. But historically, MLS teams struggled. And then around 2018, 2019, you saw, I think, the technical level come up for MLS teams, because soccer at times, especially in competitions like this, can be a weak link sport. And so River Plate and Monaco don't have weak links. And MLS teams did, because they were putting together rosters. Guys didn't know each other. Players weren't as well developed. And so you saw MLS teams struggle in big moments. And then as the quality increased and the depth increased, then you got, I think, platforms to see star players shine. And now you're starting to see MLS young players like a Gio Reyna be able to be on a platform to compete, where for River Plate, they're 10 and they're 9, like Enzo Fernandez and Julian Alvarez, who played in this tournament in the past. They could shine because the center backs and the fullbacks were solid, right? No one was going to lose a game, and that gives you the platform to shine. So that's all come along. And then the big thing over the last 4 or 5 years is like that little extra competitiveness, knowing when the game's against you, it's your throw in and the ball happens to trickle a little bit farther. And now it takes you longer to throw it back in. And you get fat, you give up a foul, but you lay in front of it and you kill the quick restart. A lot is the 50-50 of like knowing the one you can't lose. Whether it's a foul or a clean tackle, it doesn't matter. You cannot lose that moment. MLS kids struggled with that first international competition for a while. And I think that's one of the big changes we saw this year, of like understanding those big moments. I go back to the Austin Genk game. That's a match MLS teams have lost in the past, whether it's in penalty kicks, like consistently, but mainly in stoppage time.
And you're saying just based on like the savviness element, right?
Yeah. The savviness, tuned in the whole time, professionalism. And it's tough to say that because you're talking about really young kids, but it exists in a lot of these international academies where, I chatted with the Palmeiras director, and he said, if we see a kid who's good, we'll bring him in for 2 weeks trial. If we think he's better at the position than the player in our academy, that guy gets kicked out. It's like those players are always on. There isn't a lazy 50-50 in the 75th minute of a game because they always have to be locked in. MLS teams didn't have that. And I think MLS teams have grown there a lot. And so it's awesome to see them win the way they did at this tournament. It is not normal. So it's not like, oh, an MLS team will always win, and it was Austin this year. Like, that is super rare. At the 17s level, it was a little skewed. Boca Juniors and River Plate were not able to get their visas at the last minute, so they got pulled out, and that was obviously big losses. Those are big academies. But yeah, this is pretty rare, and the tournament was built for this, for international teams to come and beat MLS teams, and like for kids to learn and coaches to learn and directors to learn. Oh, we need more. We need to get further. Like, this is the next level. This is how we get there.
So you've mentioned a few success stories from MLS academies and some of the other guys internationally who have come and played in this tournament. I think here in Austin, and probably in a lot of places, but like Austin specifically, we're new to this whole academy thing. Like, we've not watched generations of these kids come through. The youngest team, like the very first Austin Academy team that ever started, is now the oldest group of the U17 team. And so this is our first time going through this. I think a lot of fans have visions of like, okay, in a few years, we're going to have 5 homegrowns starting for the Austin FC first team. And the reality is, like, that's not really usually how it works. Like, what, just on let's say a given MLS Academy team, how many of these kids can we expect to make it, I guess, A, to an MLS first team, and then B, to like continue playing pro at all?
It's a good question, and it's changing a lot every year. So there's no clean answer. And with Austin, I think you get into a space where like, well, what's the comp? Are we talking FC Dallas? Are we talking Red Bulls? Are we talking Montreal? Are we talking Nashville? Like, I think it's pretty, you guys are a tough one because of your market, because of the way the club is built, because I think the ethos of the club, like, my guess would be they will try and push more players in than not. And I think for star players and whatever, the hope is you get 1 or 2 out of each team to get to the professional ranks successfully and be a part of your first team. And one of the big things we talk about now is like, that can also mean a good trade. That could mean $400,000 allocation money because another team values that player over you. That's fine, right? That's still value to your team. And then the hope is an Owen Wolff or Gavin Wolff gets sold for millions of dollars to a European team, and that changes your club in a lot of ways as well. I feel like Austin could be a team like Red Bulls, where your backup left back, your backup right back, your backup center mid, your grinder winger, your backup center forward could be from your academy because the DNA of your club is so specific that that player through your academy should give you similar things to what a Will Bruin brings, right?
Yeah.
Will Bruin brings experience, but what you're looking for is minutes and spot starts, fitting in when you don't have someone else. And so my hope is for a club like that, you'll see 5 or 6 guys. Maybe it's from the 13th to the 19th roster spot, but those pieces, why instead of getting a Hector Jimenez and getting a Will Bruin, why couldn't they be academy players? And I think with the DNA of Austin being so specific, it would make sense that those guys would be that. And then your hope is there are 1 or 2 special players who come through. And I think Austin, I don't want to say lucky because it's good, but like you get Danny Pereira out of the draft year 1, Owen Wolff comes through because Josh has incredible DNA. So like you're a step ahead what an expansion team normally would be, in that you'll probably sell 2 players before your academy's even running, which gives time for it to bridge the gap. And what we saw, I think Columbus is actually a decent comp. Columbus basically rebuilt their academy since Tim Bezbachenko took over. Rebuilt, maybe even a kind word because it didn't exist properly. They won MLS Next Pro last year, but didn't do it with academy pieces mainly. They did it with like young signings, which is a lot of what we see from Austin FC too, because as you said, the first age group is still only 17 and 18. So you're trying to fill in that gap where the hope would be in a year or two, the 2 team is a ton of academy pieces. The ones are pushing through to the first team. And then that pipeline, once it's built, you just keep filling it as it goes along.
I'm not sure how much you got to see of the Austin U17s at GA Cup. I think they only had maybe 1 game televised, and so I didn't really get to see it. But did you get to see him? Like, did you get to see him much at all anyway, or did you hear much about them?
I only saw that 1 game. I wasn't on the call, so I was hanging out while watching 3 other games. I did their game last year, that group. So I've seen a couple of the pieces. I really like the center mids in that group, but I did not get to see a ton of them at this tournament.
Yeah, I know I think they lost 2 of their group games on penalties, but then went on and won 3 showcase games after that. And so, kind of an unlucky thing. I'm curious. I haven't gotten to see them much since Micah Burton hasn't been playing with them. And so I'm curious if they're kind of struggling to replace the production that he brought with that team, but there's some really good kids. Did Irvin Torres play in the game that you saw?
I believe he was there. Yes.
That kid's good.
I have to go back and look. Yeah. He was one of the ones that stood out to me last year. One of the other center mids I was like in love with the way he like set the tone. And Mike is the other one. Mike is special. I don't know what position. I asked every Austin person I saw the whole week, what position is Micah Burton? Everyone has a different answer, which I appreciate.
Man. I mean, the answer is all of them so far, right?
Yeah.
With the first team, he's played on the right wing. Not the first team, sorry, the second team, Austin FC 2. I think he's been playing on the right wing. With the last U.S. national team games that he played in.
Center forward.
He played some center forward, but his best minutes, I thought, came on the right wing.
So last year, I talked to Gonzalo Cigares, who coaches that USU 17 team, and he said, I don't have a center forward, so Michael Burton is my center forward. And he wasn't saying it as much of like that's his role as he can, and we need it, which I think is fine. Like showing positional flexibility is great. I think it enhances his game to like have played with your back to goal, to understand that spacing and that movement. But I talked to people in Austin who think he's a center forward. And I've talked to others who think he's a right winger. So I think it's up in the air. It's interesting in your system because if you don't have a Drew Isi underneath you, Drew Isi, obviously I'm going to make the mistake right now. Then like there is more creativity that can come out of that position, I think. And like the way he plays, and if no one's seen him play, when he comes inside, like he's a 1v1 menace. So that's where the confusion for a lot of people comes. He's like not very big. And so it seems like a waste to use him at center forward. But he can find spaces where he can do what he does best, I think, out of that position. And I think the big idea is like he scores it the way he does. Why would you not always want him between the posts? Why would you not always want him in a goal scoring area?
Yeah, I will say last year he went into national team camp, and they played him there, and I thought he looked lost. And then this most recent camp, he played center forward. I was like, oh, he kind of looks like he knows what he's doing now. And so like maybe one day he'll be there, but who knows? One other thing we wanted to ask you about is, this is not, well, it's kind of specifically about Austin FC, but Paul Tenorio reported that there had been widespread academy recruiting tampering going on, and he named Austin FC as one of the biggest offenders of this. We were talking a little bit off air, and you said that it's not exactly what it sounds like. Can you maybe share some of the information that you know about that situation?
Yeah, so I'm not 100% reporting any of this because the details are still a little bit, but my understanding of the situation is what happened was there used to be MLS homegrown territories where every player in that territory was that club's player. They had first rights and you couldn't touch any of them. If you came in and brought one of those players, if you wanted to put them on a professional contract, you would have to agree a deal with the club that was their native club of where they came from. The rule has just changed where you have 45 players in your academy at all age groups, not per team. So from U19 or 18, depending on the club, all the way down to U12, depending on the club. Outside of that, you're allowed to add 9 additional names that are protected on your list. So 54 players. So Chicago, massive city, can only protect 54 players. This rule is new. And so what my understanding of what Major League Soccer tried to do was they put this rule in, and then they looked backwards and said, well, all of these teams have acquired these players over the last year plus, and it doesn't really fit this ruling because they were operating under other rules. So they made a bunch of rulings and judgments, retroactively fine them, which I think was the wrong term. And I think that's where a lot of the confusion has come, that it feels like shady or dark or whatever. Fine them to like put a bow on that. And from now on, this is the rule. You cannot go and talk to those 9 players outside of the club. You cannot talk to the players inside the club. My understanding is there were some clubs in some markets that basically the 9 players they listed were all players that were already in other academies. And then they got money. We don't know if it's allocation money. We're not quite sure how the punishment works. We don't know the numbers at all. For all of them, and every 3 months, I think you can reset the list. So now moving forward, they're going to change to actual players who are in their market. So what I think you saw was clubs that recruit more. They were the ones who got hit because they're the ones doing it. So when you look at this Austin team, you look at players, I think they have players from Colorado, from Iowa, from California, Philly with their YSC Academy, which is a homestay program in a school. They obviously recruit from all across the country. But I think one of the things this will fix is like Caden Clark, who's a Red Bull homegrown, is from Minnesota. He moved to Arizona for an academy, then he moved to New York. New York had to trade Minnesota something so that they could acquire his homegrown rights to sign him out of their academy. There have been teams that have just said no, and then those players can't play in Major League Soccer because they don't want to sign for the team they never played for and the team they didn't. So they're trying to fix that. And I think the way this whole thing came out sounded shadier than it was, and I think it's kind of okay.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think the reaction from a lot of Austin fans when this came out was essentially like, if you're not cheating, then you're not trying. And especially with a rule that a lot of people already consider kind of dumb anyway.
A lot of it's tough, yeah.
And so like, I think, yeah, the biggest thing, like, is if we lost allocation money, then yeah, that matters. Especially if you're spending first team allocation money on academy lottery tickets, essentially, then that's maybe a little bit tough. But it's kind of cool to know that the academy is trying that hard as well, because it's a thing they've said they were going to take seriously. And I think with this win in the GA Cup, with what you're saying about kind of the professionalism of the structure all the way through, it's cool to see that it seems like they mean it. And I hope that they can kind of continue pushing that.
And I would add this. So they brought player Juan Rivera to this tournament, who was born in 2009. So he was playing up a year with the U15s.
Oh, wow.
and he played as a center forward. He came off the bench. They say that his class, so the U15s, is the most Austin heavy group or Austin area.
U14s, right?
Yes. Yeah. So they're the most Austin naturally heavy group that they've had. And Alejandro Oliveros, who's the coach of this team, who was awesome all tournament. So shout out to him. 1, congrats. And 2, thank you for being very nice to me and helpful.
I've gotten to speak with him a few times. He's a very
great
nice
guy. Hook 'em horns. He's all about Austin. He couldn't wait to get out of Florida. He could not wait to get back to Austin at the end of this thing. He's been around. He coached high school soccer. He's from, he's lived there for 20 plus years. He says it's the best group of talent he's ever seen come out of Austin. So hopefully, this won't be a factor for them for a little while because now they'll fix their system and figure it out. But that, I think, is something that people should be really excited about because to me, as a fan, that's what I want to see. But I think that's one of the silver bullets for Major League Soccer of how do you break through? How do you beat out the Premier League, but also beat out NBA and NHL and NFL? No other sport in America can actually say these are local players that you get to go root for, right? The rare one-off where you draft a guy whose dad was a fan of the team 50 years ago.
Or played at the college 2 hours away or whatever.
Exactly. But imagine the opportunity to watch Austonians step on the field consistently and play in CCL and Leagues Cup and go play in a Club World Cup and represent their city, I think is pretty special. And that's the hope for the way this whole thing's being built.
All right. Well, thanks so much for sharing all of your wisdom, David.
We didn't have to talk about the first team. We talked about championships.
Exactly.
What a great episode.
Yeah. We still have to do that part, but we won't make you do that. But okay, folks can find you on Extra Time every week. Is there anything else you want to plug? Anywhere else folks should look out for you?
I am on the Total Soccer Show every Tuesday. So if you don't listen to that, you should listen to it. We kind of do the same stuff. Me and Paul had it basically back and forth for an hour on the show last week, right after he broke that story. Joe Lowery's on it, Taylor Rockwell. You can follow me on Twitter at Empire Gas, GASS, pronounced gas, but spelled gas. And no, I think that's kind of it. You should watch any youth stuff we do. So I think we're going to broadcast a couple more tournaments, hopefully coming up later this year.
My wife is so excited about that. There's not enough soccer in our life that she got to watch. She got to watch the FC2 game, the GA Cup, and LAFC all this weekend.
Did you guys go to the next pro opener?
Yeah, I was there. Yeah, it was wild.
How cool was it?
It was so cool. It felt like a high school football game, and
Friday Night Lights.
Absolutely, and I know that means different things for people in different parts of the country, but in Texas, that's a compliment.
Well, we've all seen the movie, so we get that part.
It was very cool. And people chanting Kip Keller's name after the game. Nice. And it was just it was pretty special. It was a lot of fun. So yeah, I'm definitely going to try to go out to as many of those games as I can.
Yeah, they're the most games you watch, it's an empty stadium. So Austin fans, keep going. Because if I have to broadcast those games, I prefer Austin fans being in a crowd.
Yeah, well, David, I am not just saying this because you're here. I would say this if you weren't here, but I really, really do enjoy your commentary on Extra Time, but also your play-by-play during these youth tournaments.
Thank you.
I think you do a great job keeping the narrative going, saying what's going on, but also providing insight. That's my favorite type of broadcaster, and I think you do a great job at it. So thank you.
Appreciate that. It is, as I said, my favorite week of the year. Going into it, it's miserable. It's a grind and everything. And then you get there, and I think what I've come to realize is there's really great, passionate soccer minds and soccer people. And in a way, they're all working in the same direction. Less now. It used to all be, we're going to win a World Cup collaborative. And now it's, I want to win an MLS Cup and I want this kid to play for my club and we want to sell them overseas. But I come out so energized by just the conversations we're having and the amount I learn. And I think it's special for these kids because you talked about high school football. For all of us, growing up, you play high school sports in front of your crowd. These kids don't actually play in front of a crowd that often because they play academy games. They're a bit sequestered. They're in empty stadiums. So it's fun to be able to put this on for them and make them feel like it's a big deal. So I appreciate that. And I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. It helps when your team wins. Everyone like referees. Everyone likes us when they win.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks, David. Appreciate it.
They drive me wild, right out of my brain. Waking up shaking, and you can feel the fall.
Moon Tower Soccer is brought to you by Covert Auto Group. Covert Auto Group has been meeting the needs of local car buyers for 114 years because of their service, financial expertise, and support after the sale.
In addition to supporting car buyers, Covert's an important part of the soccer community. If you're in the market for a new or used vehicle, be sure to check out covertauto.com.
And again, Moon Tower Soccer is brought to you by our friends at Sage Wilson Realty. We're going to be giving away 2 tickets to an upcoming match, so fill out the form in the show notes to enter for your chance to win.
Again, this is made possible by Sage Wilson Realty, so if you or someone you know are in need of Sage real estate advice in Austin, Texas, you should talk to our friends at Sage Wilson Realty. Be sure to check them out online at sagewilson.com. All right, we are thrilled to be joined once again by an old friend. He is a play-by-play commentator for MLS Season Pass on Apple TV. His name is Adrian Healey. Adrian, good to see you again, man.
Good to see you, Landon, in a place that is not South Congress.
Yeah,
I had the pleasure of bumping into you last week. I'm gonna have to go down there more often on a lunch hour if I know you're strolling the streets.
Do it. Let's get lunch together. I go out and have lunch on South Congress a few times a week. Jeremiah, I don't think I told you this, but I was out on my lunch break and just here comes. It's usually just like a bunch of tourists walking down South Congress, but I look up the sidewalk and Adrian Healey's walking towards me.
Have I gravitated slightly above the status of tourist? I hope so. I hope I look a bit more like a local now.
Absolutely.
Maybe I don't sound like it. But.
I don't. How's your y'all? Have you
Y'all?
got that down yet, y'all?
No, I do bring it out, and I've been bringing it out doing the rounds for the Apple TV. You know, in Salt Lake, you get a bit of a funny look when you give them a yawl, but I do bring it out. It doesn't sound the same in a British accent, but it's certainly eyebrow raising, I think.
Well, I think that makes you make a little bit more of an Austinite. The last time we had you on was right before the season started, and we talked about sort of the Apple schedule. I think at that point in time, you thought maybe it was going to be a little more of a regional schedule, and found out you're going to spend a lot of time in California, and you're working in 6-week increments. So now you've got through your first 6 weeks, or 7 weeks maybe on the job. Like, how has that changed for you?
Well, regional, it turns out, according to the Apple definition of regional, is anything west of the Mississippi, basically, which is what me and Kobe Jones, my partner, have been doing. We've been to San Jose twice. We've been to Kansas City. We've been to Salt Lake City. We're going back to Salt Lake in a couple of weeks. We're going up to Seattle in 2 or 3 weeks. So we got the first 6 weeks ahead of a ball being kicked in a league, and we were told that was going to be, the way it was going to be moving forward. We'd get it in 6-week increments, so we'd know where we were going. Well, that's kind of changed. Surprise, surprise! And now we're getting it in sort of 2-week dribbles rather than a full 6 weeks. So they tend to come out 2 games at a time. But I do know where we're going to be into mid-May now, and just happy to be coming back to Q2, Landon and Jeremiah. It's I've been around the league, as you know, plenty, and seen plenty of other places. But having been just in Austin for 2 years, I kind of forgot that it isn't like that everywhere else. Far from it. I mean, it's so far removed in some places that, oh my God, this is I forgot this is what it's like in many places in that place. So very happy to be coming back to Q2 this week.
Yeah, we'll all be happy to have you back as well. We don't get to listen to you during the game, but it's always fun to have you on there whenever we go back and do our rewatches. So as Adrian said, he and Kobe Jones will be on the broadcast for Austin's upcoming game against the Vancouver Whitecaps. So getting into that matchup, Vancouver has CONCACAF Champions League going on right now. They played midweek last week and went down 3-0 to LAFC, which is an all too familiar scoreline for us here in Austin. And so we're kind of hoping that these two teams would beat up on each other and make the games a little more easy for Austin. Didn't seem to be the case in LA's case. Do we think what do you think we can expect from that in regard to Vancouver coming in? I know they're going to have probably enough days to recover as far as just like a match to match schedule, but it is still a really compact stretch of games. And so do we think that there will be any effect of this stretch on this game this weekend?
Well, unfortunately, I think that was, that chance for Austin to take advantage of perhaps a weakened Vancouver lineup has been totally obliterated by their first leg capitulation. Because if I'm Vanni Sartini, their manager now, I'm like, this is dumb. I mean, you're not going to LA with any hope at all of overturning a 3-0. So you're resting a lot of starters, and you're basically saying the Austin game is by far the most important. I don't know how that's not their mindset. I mean, are they really going to go to LAFC and win 4-0? I don't think so. So given that, I think we'll see some shuffling of the deck, and I think they will look at the Austin game as a big one, because they are in, other than that LAFC home CONCACAF Champions League, they are actually in a pretty good run of form at the moment, which is a little concerning perhaps for Austin.
They started off with 2 losses and then had 3 draws in a row and then had 2 wins in a row. And so they're just kind of slowly amping it up and have looked decent in their last few runouts. And so like players that we should be looking out for, I think Ryan Gauld is a guy we've seen several times now. I know he struggled to stay healthy at times last year, but he seems to be kind of mostly back to his former self. Julian Gressel has been playing really well this year. He has 4 assists already. He's been playing as more of a midfielder this year. So Vanni Sartini has them playing kind of like a 4-3-2-1 look. And Gressel has been one of the outside midfielders. And so you would think, like, with his skill set, you'd want him out wide, but it's actually suited him quite well. And he's still able to get into these spaces where he can provide service into the box and still be just really lean into his skill set. And so he's been dangerous doing that. And then newcomer Simon Betcher was a teammate of Kip Keller at SLU, has come on and scored 3 goals so far this year. And then Brian White, their normal starter at striker, he's second in the league in cumulative expected goals. And so he hasn't finished them all, but he is getting in a lot of positions to get really dangerous chances. What do you think we can expect from Vancouver going into this? And like, what can Austin do to maybe slow them down a little?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting challenge, guys. It really is, because there aren't many teams that really play, as Vanni Sartini always calls it, we play the Christmas tree formation 4-3-2-1. But they have 2 very good attacking midfielders, as you said, in Gauld and Vitae. I love that you brought up Simon Betcher, because we talk about our number 9 sort of situation in Austin, and they have 3 number 9s up there as well, because Sergio Cordova was the player they actually signed to be their lead striker. Remember him from the playoff game against RSL, and he actually torched us for 2 goals in the first half. Well, he was their big money centre forward signing in the off season, but actually it was, first of all, Brian White, who kept him out of the team, and now it's Betcher. And Betcher is such a great story, as you say. Former teammate Kip Keller's, but he was playing Next Pro last year, and he's the perfect example of a player that can make that leap from Next Pro level to first team level. He's hit the ground running. I think if you're Josh Wolff and Austin, you're looking where are their weaknesses. Again, it may be a bit like us. It's central defense. I mean, Blackman and Veselinovic are their 2 central defenders. I think they can be got at. I think they've got a new Japanese goalkeeper, Takeoka, who isn't the biggest. He's great. They actually signed him specifically for his ball playing ability. Does that sound familiar? A goalkeeper playing, but he does come out. He comes out and sort of acts as another sweeper, and he will even start attacks. But he's a decent shot stopper, but he's not the biggest goalie. So I've seen him be beaten a couple of times this season, where perhaps a bigger goalie might have stopped the shot. So if ever there was a game that Austin need to get back to what they did at RSL and have some shots from distance, I would say this is the game. They can get at this central defense, the defensive midfield. Maybe Kubas, it may be Ahmed. It's not their strength, and neither is their center of defense. So I think Austin should be plotting ways to attack the middle of the field defensively for Vancouver.
So, Adrian, you're not. I assume you're probably not around as the team as much as you were last year, but are still around them more than most. Like, what do you sense the vibe is in Austin these days?
Yeah, I'm not around them as much. I must admit, I've become more of a sort of obviously a very interested onlooker and a sort of a very involved one, but I don't get to talk to them as much and sense the vibe day in, day out. I think we're in a difficult spot right now. There's no hiding that. Confidence and momentum are everything in this league. Everything, where the margins are so slim. And last year we had it in bucket loads, and this year we don't. And there's probably many reasons we could dig into a whole show on why we don't. But I still think, and some people may roll their eyes at this, I still think that the Violette kind of catastrophe has left a scar there, which has taken some getting over, and it's bled over into the league form, and that was a massive confidence shake. And at the same time, this is a team that's trying to evolve tactically. I think it was the right decision to evolve tactically. I think they had to. I think the results kind of hit it a little bit, and the way that the season went last year kind of hit it. But in some ways, teams had started to figure us out by the second half of last year. So I think Josh Wolff and the coaching staff knew we had to try and do something differently. When you do something different, it doesn't come together overnight. So I think we're in a tough moment at the moment. It looks a little anemic. We look a little vulnerable. We look a little flat. But I don't think it's anything that, in the grand scheme of things, can't turn around. I've seen it too many times, guys, covering this league. Sort of teams that look lifeless and flat in April, even into May, then just kind of getting it together. And I know that's hard to hang your hat on, but I've seen it happen time and time again. Remember famously that LA Galaxy team in 2012 that won it all with Beckham and Keane and Donovan and star-studded. They lost 8 of their first 11 games that year. They looked horrible, absolutely horrible, and then kind of figured it out. And I think some of the veterans on our team are now been in the league long enough to realize it's not what you do at this time of year that counts. So I think it's at the moment we're looking at a season that's the exact opposite of last year. Last year we were flying at this time of the year in March, April, May, June, absolutely flying, and then less so in the second half of the year. Let's hope it's the other way around this year. That's my main hope. It's hard when we saw all the success last year to remain patient. And there are many things that make you pull your hair out. It's like players just don't look the same at the moment, do they? Star players, players that played with such sort of pace and joy and inventiveness last year just seem a little slovenly at the moment. But I do think it's all part of this sort of bigger scheme, and confidence and momentum is everything, and it can be lost quickly and it can be gained very quickly. So let's hope this Saturday does present a chance, I think, to kind of really get things pointed in the right direction. This is a team we should be beating at home.
So looking at this game specifically, who would y'all what 11 would y'all roll out? I know there's a lot of people within the fan base who are already disillusioned with Jossie Zardes, but Maxi Urruti did not look like the answer against LAFC the other day. And so do we need to just say these are our best 11 players, put them on the field and let them play with each other until they figure it out? Or should Josh Wolff keep kind of tinkering and playing with things to try to improve results?
It's a really good question, something I've pondered. Can I say right here and now publicly, I miss Moussa Jite. I wish.
I think it's fine. Yeah,
I really wish we still had him, because he provided that different option at number 9 that I don't feel like we have in the 3. I don't know, but what I do know is the team we put out there and the plan we have has to center around getting Sebastian Drusi on the ball in the penalty area. It just, to my mind, that isn't happening enough at the moment. And for whatever reason, tactically or personnel-wise, it is not happening nearly as much as it did last year. I mean, how many times last year did we see him just arrive at the perfect time in the penalty area to get on the end of something? Time and time again. Hasn't happened this year.
Yeah.
Barely hasn't happened. So that to me is where you start. So whatever decision you make as a coach and as a team, it has to revolve around getting your superstar more involved in the dangerous area of the field, because at the moment he's not.
All right. Well, anything else before we wrap up, Adrian?
Oh, I have one.
Oh, you have one more question?
Oh, I said a statement, Adrian. It was so, we got Austin gets blown out by LA on Saturday, and then flipped it on a little bit later and watched like you call this dramatic RSL comeback. It was just so weird to be like in the middle of like the Austin angst, and then also hear like and then hear a very excited Adrian Healey going crazy over goals being scored. So hopefully this week that excited Adrian Healey will be because Austin's scoring goals.
Yes, I would like that very much. It's only my second league visit there. I got to call one goal last time around, and even that was kind of a truncated call because remember that was the Gallagher goal where it wasn't given until they went to VAR. So but it's funny. I'm glad you caught some of that RSL game, Jeremiah, because they were in a really bad run of form. They'd lost 4 straight. They'd lost the last 2 games 4-0. And they'd had a frustrating first half against Charlotte where they'd missed 2 of it. It just looked like they were never going to score. Then all of a sudden, I mean, you saw what happened in the second half: 3 goals in 7 minutes, and they played out of their skin. And it can change that quickly in this league. That's the beauty of it, and sometimes it's the frustration of it. It really can change like that. So I hope I get to the game against Vancouver at home last year, 3-0 at the same time of year. I think it was a mid-April or late April game. That was one of their most comprehensive home displays of the season. So let's hope they can produce a carbon copy. That'd be nice. I'm ready for it. My vocal cords are need to be stretched. So.
All right. Well, Adrian will be on the call with Kobe Jones this Saturday on MLS Season Pass on Apple TV. Adrian, thanks so much for joining us again. It's a pleasure as always, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you so much, guys. And actually, last thought, Kobe loved the tacos at Q2 that we had before the game last time. So I think he's looking for a repeat. Said they're the best tacos he'd ever had. Anyway.
Did you do Valentina's or
yes.
one taco?
Yeah, Valentina's, yes. So,
okay. They're delightful. Yeah, good. glad Kobe knows a good taco.
Yes, he does, indeed. See you Saturday, guys. Enjoy the game. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Adrian.
Thank you.
All right. We want to thank David Goss and Adrian Healey one more time. We are honored that folks like that would come onto the show. It's been a lot of fun to talk to all these people every week. If you want to continue the conversation, come find us online on Twitter at elviajero87, at jbentley_ATX, and then at Moon Tower Soccer on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. We already talked about the Patreon. Sign up for that. We'd appreciate the support, and you can get some cool gear while you're at it. We'd also encourage you to visit the Striker website where you can get a 30% discount with the code MoonTower23 with the capital M. Jeremiah, what should folks look out for there?
It's a little bit of under the radar news, but Phil West published an article about this. Austin-based group announces Central Texas women's team coming to USLW League in 2024. So if you want to see all the details on the new women's club in the Austin area, be sure to check out the Striker.
All right. Well, thanks so much for listening. We will be back next week to review the Vancouver Whitecaps game, and then we'll preview what is the next game after that? LA Galaxy. Preview the LA Galaxy game, and then we'll cover any other news that comes up between now and then. Until then, I'm Landon Cottom.
I'm Jeremiah Bentley.
We'll catch you next time.
When no one is around.
Think for nothing, you never.
La gente. Oh my God.